You're listening to Mastcast, an SM podcast where your hosts, Candice and Rachael, explore the complexities of living with a rare chronic disease through personal experience, patient guest stories, caregiver perspectives, insights from specialists, and updates from the research and advocacy communities, with the purpose of bringing knowledge, connection, and hope to those affected with mastocytosis and related conditions.
Hi, this is Candice.
Hi, this is Rachael.
And welcome back to our third episode of Mastcast, an SM podcast, where we hope to answer ours and maybe your questions about SM and talk about what it's like to live with it, and hopefully get a lot of input from other patients, advocates, and researchers in the field. We left last episode off on a cliffhanger of sorts. Rachael threw out there that we should make it a two-parter, and she couldn't have been more right, because any longer, and I don't think anyone would have listened. But we left a lot of things
a lot
still
more to say,
on.
you know.
Yeah, a lot of things were still on the table. So we wanted to pick up, and I think last episode we talked about like kind of how we were diagnosed and what our major triggers were, and some of just like living with it, but I think we can dig a little bit more into that and kind of finish up those awesome questions that Rachael laid out for us, and then talk a little bit more beyond that too. So I guess we can start with, now that we know how we got here, more or less, like what is it like, Rachael, for you day to day living with systemic mastocytosis?
I feel like that's a big question, even though I wrote these questions.
I was like, ma'am, you did this.
I was like, I've done this to myself. Also, sorry, I sound a bit hoarse. I am having some severe GERD symptoms that are so bad. They are apparently causing some strep throat-like symptoms, so I keep losing my voice a bit. Anyway, so it's stuff like that, I guess. That's pretty normal for a day-to-day thing. It's really what it's looked like has changed dramatically at different points. I think like when I was diagnosed, it looked one way. When I had like a really severe flare for several years, it was kind of running my life at that point. And then now it's kind of like a balance of things a little bit more. I have, good days and I have not so good days. And it's not always predictable. It's almost entirely unpredictable, which is I think one of the hardest things to live with about systemic mastocytosis is that it's like the lack of predictability, not only in will I have symptoms, but what will those symptoms be and how do I manage them, like while also trying to live your life. And I think that that's like a sentiment that I've seen shared by other patients. And it's, it looks a very different way. It makes it hard to explain to other people, especially those who don't know you very well. And that can be tricky in like a variety of settings. Like, I don't have a full-time job at the moment, but in the years that I did, that was a really tricky thing to navigate in those ways. But a lot of the time I just kind of say like my body is glitching, in the sense that like it literally feels sometimes like a computer that someone poured some water on. And it's like, it's functional enough, like it turns on and everything, but it doesn't really do what you're asking it to do. There's like the rainbow wheel of death in the center of the screen, and it's buffering a lot. And when I say glitching, I mean things like I will get random shooting pains throughout, like in some random part of my body, and they might move around, and then they kind of vanish, like they never happened. But there've been moments in the past where I was like, did I like trip on something and like sprain my ankle?
Right.
And it feels like that for approximately somewhere between 30 seconds and a couple of hours or a couple of days. There was one time I went to the doctor because my wrist was bothering me so much. And I think you have more chronic pain than I do. My symptoms tend to look different. And that's another thing. It's really different between different people. So it's hard to find someone who's even had that shared experience with you.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode, and I think we'll say it a million times to the point where the word will mean nothing, but this disease is definitely heterogeneous, meaning it's very individual. Yes. It is really down to, we may have some shared experiences, but we really exist kind of on an island of our own little bodies and how they react to the world.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. And so what I was saying was that my wrist was bothering me so much at one point that I like went to the doctor to get an x-ray. And of course, as soon as I made the appointment, talked to the doctor, got the script, it stopped hurting. It was fine. And normally I don't even bother to get that stuff checked out, but I'm also an artist and it was my right wrist and I'm right-handed. So I was like, I'm going to need to get this in check.
It's so interesting because I feel like that contributes to like this self-gaslighting that we do because the symptoms are random and they only last for so long, and sometimes they resolve themselves, sometimes it requires medication, sometimes it requires treatment. But like I have had similar experiences where I've been feeling bad or I'm in pain or something's going wrong and I finally decide, okay, I'm going to go see a doctor about this, and then it's like, oh, everything's fine. I'm glad I wasted their time, my time, that money. Cool. Great.
Right. And it's never convenient. And like, and I think the gaslighting it's bad. Like there's like this sense of imposter syndrome, at least for me, for like a lot of years about like whether I'm disabled or just chronically ill, and like, is it okay to use different words like that? Or am I making up my brain fog? That was one I struggled with for a really long time because it's like, no one can see it. There's not like a diagnostic test to prove you have brain fog. I know that I'm struggling to do this stuff, but then there's moments, there's days where it's so clear I am so sick I can't function. Like I call them like, usually like there's days I like do things from my couch. I'm just like, it's a couch day. You know, like the day is getting canceled. I'm going to live on my couch, probably with my laptop and, you know, whatever, my dogs. And then there's other days where everything is harder, but I don't actually feel like blatantly like I have brain fog or like I'm having severe issues. It's just everything takes me, if I think it'll take me an hour, it takes me 3 to 4. If some days like all the parts of my body are heavier. It's almost like every limb weighs 3 to 7 times as much as it should. Like just things are harder in a way that I can't quite quantify. Or like, you know, someone will ask me like, oh, what doesn't feel good? And I'm like, nothing and to everything. There's nothing objectively wrong. I just feel terrible. Or everything feels heavy, or it's harder, or I'm too run down. And like, those are the days I feel like I gaslight myself the worst. Because I'm like, maybe I'm just being lazy, or maybe I'm just not trying hard enough.
Oh yeah, it's really easy to do all that, especially when it's just like you're just laying around. So you're thinking, I could be doing that pile of laundry right there, but man, I just cannot motivate myself to get up and do it. Yeah, it's easy to go into the I'm lazy or I'm problematic somehow.
Yeah. And I feel like we live in a society that very much perpetuates like us kind of blaming ourselves for those things when it's really like we shouldn't be. And as much as I know that and tell myself that, there are some moments of like that doubt kind of creeping in. And like those are often the days where you're right, I probably could get up and do that laundry if I really, really struggled to do it. And doing that will likely set off a much worse allergic reaction. Like the bucket is already so full, it's going to overflow if I try. Or like if like, I don't know, the delivery guy drops off a package I ordered and he's wearing cologne, like that'll be enough to set off the whole thing. Versus like needing to be in a room with somebody like that on another day, perhaps.
Totally.
So anyway.
Yeah, I had that moment yesterday. I drove through the pharmacy to pick up my medicine. I just did the drive-through because I'd gone in the night before and it's Christmas time, so there are scents everywhere.
God.
And it was the worst. So of course I immediately put on my mask and all that, and it was fine. But the next day I went to the CVS drive-through or the pharmacy drive-through, and they opened the window and just straight into my car, and my whole car just smelled like it, and I couldn't get away from it fast enough. It was so overwhelming. And I do wonder if it was just like that was a rough day for me, and so the little bit that got in my car from the window was enough to make me so for me it'll be like an immediate GI kind of reaction, and then having to clear my throat, and then eventually comes the brain fog. Those are my initial symptoms of, oh yeah, that was bothering me.
And like I get that on such a deep level, and that's what I think the most accurate way I could say like how it impacts my life is that it impacts every single thing I do and how I do it, even if I'm not letting it. Like I hate the phrasing of like don't let this run your life, or don't like when people like that kind
That's
of
very
toxic
convenient
positivity
for people who don't have to live with it. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, and it's not just about SM. I've heard people say that
Sure,
about literally anything, right? Like, you know, people treating people who mask because of
Yeah.
COVID, like they're living in fear. I'm sorry, making practical choices about my body does not mean I'm living in fear or letting something
And
ruin
also,
my
it's
life.
none of your damn business. Just
Right.
let people do what they're gonna do. Like, whatever makes them feel safe and allows them to live in the world and, like, exist is fine.
Exactly. And like, but there's no decisions I really make at this point that aren't somewhat informed by my mast
Hmm.
cell disease. Trying to go away with one of my partners for our anniversary. We've been talking about going on vacation all year. We wanted to go to Prague. I can't find anywhere in Prague that's fragrance free.
Oh.
So we're changing where we're going. We might try to go next year or something.
Hmm.
We might never end up going. I don't know. But like even trying to plan a getaway for the weekend, which is what we've kind of changed our plans to. We were supposed to go away like in a week for like the weekend, and I still don't know where we're going because I can't find a place to stay. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's so like, and I'll someone will mention something to me and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I want to go to this thing." I'm like, "That sounds like so much fun," and then later it'll dawn on me like that's not a thing that's accessible for me, for one
Hmm.
reason or another, and trying to go away with friends, trying to visit friends, trying to go camping, and like now wood smoke sometimes bothers my
Hmm.
asthma type symptoms.
Yeah.
You know, like there's going camping, porta potties. A lot of campsites have porta potties. They are incredibly fragrant.
Yeah, they are.
I have a hard time breathing even if I wear a mask in there because I will smell like it, even if I run in and pee for like, real
Hmm.
quick. Um,
Yeah.
there's just, it's every little thing kind of comes back to it. So I guess that's the best way. I mean, I could give examples till I'm blue in the face, but
Sure.
it's just that I have to consider where I'm recording this right now was informed by my mast cell disease.
Mm.
I, I'm in an area at the moment that doesn't have great internet, so I'm at the public library, and the one conference room smelled like perfume. So I asked to use a different one and that you can't book online. I had to call and make the reservation, and I hate making phone calls. So like, but like these are things I end up doing because the other versions of it aren't accessible for me.
Hmm.
And even when it's really small stuff and manageable stuff like that, like it's still
It's an
impactful. It's still a step
extra. Yeah.
step I wouldn't have taken otherwise.
It's something you have to
Yeah.
think about that other people don't. It's something that's very easy to take for granted, and and you just have to live it every day. Yeah.
And I would love to dive into like a whole episode at some point about the mental load of what that's
Oh,
like
definitely. It's 100%
because
on the
it's
list.
exhausting.
Any chronically ill person has to deal with the emotional and mental strain of it as well. I mean, I don't think that my answer would be any different. It's very similar. I don't have quite the level of fragrance sensitivity, so I can be a little more like laissez-faire about it. But I have found that, especially in hotels, if they don't have a hypoallergenic floor, or if they can't make sure I have an unscented room, then that's a problem. We just were in Austin for the weekend and we rented an Airbnb, and I asked them like, "Hey, are there scents in the room? And if there are, can you please remove them before or whatever?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we don't like all the laundry is unscented and everything, but I'll take out the scent and I'll open the windows," is what she said. And I got there and neither of those things had been done at all. And I couldn't find the scent forever. It took me a long time, and it's a very small space, so it's very concentrated. So I'm
Yeah.
starting to flush, and I'm starting to burp a lot, and I'm starting to like clear my throat a lot and all that. I finally found it, and I just set it outside the door, but had to sleep with the windows open that night. And even then, it was very not restful sleep, and I felt
Hmm.
pretty crappy in the morning. So, and I had a pretty rough day the rest of the day. That was one of those moments where I kind of realized so there's anaphylaxis and there's like anaphylactic shock, right? So there's the moment you
Hmm.
need an EpiPen, but then there's also all these other moments where you still have multiple body systems engaged in the allergic reaction process. It's just not, you're not about to immediately pass out and maybe
Right.
die. So it's not terminal at the moment. It took me all day to finally realize the flushing, the stomach pain, the brain fog, the constant clearing of my throat. I needed to take rescue meds. Um, and it's amazing. Once I did that, I was good. So I guess the ways that if I could answer the question more specifically, the ways that it's changed my life, I do still work. I noticed that I'm on my good days, everything's great. It's fine. On my not good days, I find that talking about mental load, And how do I say it? There's just an increased stress and anxiety on the days when I can't put thoughts together, when I can't remember names. Like I was in a meeting with my boss a few weeks ago, and I was trying to talk to her about different projects we had going on, and I could not remember a single name. Like, not one. I couldn't remember a single name. And I know she's looking at me like, okay, get it together. Like, this is your job. Um, and then there's just this added stress. And then that stress is compounded by, I need this job so that I can see my specialist. The only way that I'm getting the care that I'm getting is because I have this job. And that's critical for me.
Hmm.
And so the thought of not having, so, I can spin out pretty quickly about like where that might leave me. And then now at this point, my partner also has a chronic cancer. And if he were to lose his job, he'd have to go on my insurance. And like, there's just all these ways of thinking that I think millions of people have to think this way all the
Yeah.
time with chronic diseases or with diseases of aging or anything like that. But I find myself thinking about it in ways I never thought I would at this age, at this point.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I have to plan. I have to make sure that I have some safe foods. I have to make sure that, like for Thanksgiving, for example, I'm making food that I can eat. And I don't generally expect other people to do that for me. Although I was kind of proud of myself. I did ask my sister-in-law if she could please use gluten-free noodles for the mac and cheese. Um, and thankfully she was fine with it. But you're constantly having to advocate for yourself. You're kind of constantly having to think of, okay, what's the roadblock coming up and how do I deal with that roadblock? Whether it's fragrances in a hotel room or where I'm going to travel, or literally difficult conversations with family who don't get it, who don't
Hmm.
understand how you're doing. And I find that the ways that I like when it gets into the like mental health space, I really struggle now with like, okay, I would just push through reactions before I knew what I had. And
Mm.
I would just be like, whatever, get up, just do it. Who cares that you feel like crap? Who cares that you're having these reactions? And now I find myself being much more mindful of them. And I don't know what the right balance is for that. I don't know if I'm being too careful or if I'm being, too hyper vigilant about things because I do feel that way now. More so, obviously, than I did then. Though I do recognize that now I'm more reactive than I was then, that my reactions last longer, so there's that too.
It's interesting you bring that up because it's like actually I don't I'm both cautious and also like there are plenty of times where I'm like, meh, it'll be fine, and it's usually
Totally.
not.
No, totally pay
But
for
I
it
don't
later.
think, from what I know about both of us, that either one of us is too overly cautious or like, in the sense that like, and I think that how that would be defined would be like very different individually,
Per person,
like
yeah.
everything else about this disease. But I
Hmm.
also think that I kind of think that asking ourselves that is like maybe another form of some lighter version of gaslighting, in a sense that like
Yeah.
questioning yourself, like,
Oh, yeah.
and it's hard not to. It's a disease that like kind of constantly puts you in a position to ask everyone around you to accommodate you,
It's really
in a way that
exhausting.
it's, and especially I think for people who are socialized as girls,
Hmm.
that's something we're like genuinely not socialized to do. I remember
No.
the being a person who like when I was a kid, if I went to the movies, I hated sitting in the middle because I always had to get up and use the bathroom, and I
Hmm.
always felt bad like bothering people so much that like they had to move their legs like a half an inch so that I could get out because I'm not like the biggest person, and like
Hmm.
it was like barely a bother, but I felt like I was being really rude. And then fast forward 15, 20 years, whatever, till I was in my early 20s, and having to ask every single person I encounter who wants to interact with me to not wear fragrances
Hmm.
just so that I can like feel like an actual person and be there. I mean, there are times that I can navigate like being in spaces where it's really really fragrant, but it's a very short term
Sure, sure, yeah.
thing because my brain just stops functioning
Yeah.
pretty quickly,
Hmm.
depending on the severity of it. But like, and then it leads to a whole bunch of other issues depending on the day.
So because we're talking about fragrances and because I think that's obviously one of your really
Yeah, it
main
is.
triggers and something you're very sensitive to, and I have that as well. Just um, we had asked for questions at the end of
Oh, yes.
last
Yeah.
podcast, and my sweet mother called me to ask about fragrances specifically. She was just really curious if it's just, she called them chemical fragrances, but I'll call them synthetic fragrances, just like in
Hmm.
general. But even natural, quote unquote natural, like essential oils and things like that. She asked if anything other than the synthetic fragrances can set off a reaction. And I thought that was a really great question because while it
Yeah.
doesn't happen for me, I've absolutely talked to people who have can have anaphylaxis to the smell of cooking onions or, meat, or there are, it is truly so individual, and just about any reaction or anything you can react to, someone has had.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's a newer one for me. But cooking, or like burning cooking
Mm-hmm.
smells sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
like if someone's deep frying something, I either we have to open all the windows or I just want to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate because sometimes the food that's being made is like also delicious, and
Yeah,
also
of
by that
course.
point I no longer want anything because I'm
Uh,
miserable and don't feel good. But to answer your mom's question, so it depends on the person.
mhm.
Individually, I think, or at least in anecdotally, I should say, in my experience, synthetic fragrances tend to harm more people
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more common for
than
synthetic fragrances to
yeah.
be a problem than it is for cooking. But that said, yeah, you can
That said, it's
absolutely.
not the only
Hmm.
option. I used to be okay with most essential oils. This is just a personal anecdote.
Hmm.
And then I started having more friends over at my house. I like would host potlucks for a while, and a lot of my friends who did not have mast cell diseases, or at least not mastocytosis, some of them later learned they have MCAS. Apparently, I've been unintentionally collecting people with mast cell diseases. I
I
don't
have
even know
quite
how
a few of those
that's
myself.
possible. um, but they had mentioned that they get migraines from essential oils, so I stopped using them. And then, what I've become allergic to is also really has expanded over time. So, like, there's a couple that I'm okay with. There's some, like, lavender is always giving me headaches. I
Mm.
might just have, like, a normal allergy. By normal, I mean IgE mediated,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I guess I should clarify. But,
yeah.
over time, I find that more strong smell is just like, it's somewhere between sometimes I'm reacting to them and sometimes they're just kind of like, it's almost like an itch in my brain. Like I can't stop
Hmm.
thinking about it. And that's when I start gaslighting myself more because I'm like, okay, it's fine. You're not, are you even having an allergic reaction to this or is it just bothering you? And honestly, it gets really hard to tell sometimes,
It does.
no
It
matter how
is
much
really hard
I
to tell.
kind of pick
I
at that
absolutely
thread.
experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I absolutely experience that too, where I'm like, okay, that's a really strong smell. Am I reacting to it? Or do I just not like that it's such a strong smell and I'm not enjoying the fragrance or whatever? But I'll do the very same thing. It'll become like almost a hyper focus, and I can't really think about much else until it hijacks your brain a bit. And then
Hmm.
that really begs the question, is the hijacking of the brain a reaction? Is that part of it, or are you just overthinking it? Who knows?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how to answer that. Like, I
I
don't know
know.
how anybody would in that situation. Can you even? Like,
I don't
if it
know.
escalates, then it becomes clear to me that it was obviously a
Of course.
reaction.
Yeah.
Or if later I think about it, I'll be like, oh, I think I was having an allergic reaction. Because, like, there's even, like, little things like that where there's no obvious trigger. Like, if
Hmm.
I'm a pretty upbeat person. I go through phases. But, like, if I am suddenly really, really sad, like, just the world is awful, everything is
Hmm.
terrible, I'm so sad about everything happening, yada
Hmm.
yada yada. It will never occur to me in those moments that I'm probably having an allergic reaction. But
Sure.
ask me 6 hours later when I'm feeling better, or like I've used medication and have
Hmm.
because something else started happening that like was like, oh, that might be an allergic reaction, and then I'll be like, oh, that was probably an allergic reaction. Like, why was I? I don't know what set that off. I wasn't really sad about anything, and then suddenly I was like inconsolable.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and
Well, they
and
talk about in anaphylaxis that sense of doom that people will feel. So this like impending sense of some like dread and doom is
yeah,
something that comes along with some folks with anaphylaxis. So I think it's, yeah,
it
perfectly
could be
reasonable that
that.
it would affect something like that.
I think it's like maybe my guess is like some kind of emotional dysregulation brought on by some kind of like
I guess
inflammation
that's what I'm
somewhere. But
referring to. I'm not saying that you're
yeah,
feeling the sense of doom from
oh yeah,
anaphylaxis.
yeah.
I'm
No,
just saying that like it
that is a
is a
common one.
sign
Yeah,
of anaphylaxis. So it makes sense to me that if you're reacting to something, there may be an
that
emotional
tracks
component that's like
absolutely.
out of your control.
what surprised me the most about getting diagnosed was that you can just develop sensitivities or allergies at any point in life, and they might be to things that you've never heard anybody reacts to before.
And they might go away later. You might find that, oh, suddenly it's fine. Who cares?
Right? Yeah, it's keeps you on your toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely does that. I was sitting next to a woman at a knitting group. We were outside. It was a lovely night. There was a nice breeze. And it was on everything. So not just her, it was in her book as she was like flipping through it and
Mm,
wafting it my way. And it was a lovely, very natural smell, like a, an essential oil or something like that. But it was very intense and I started reacting to it. And it's silly. Every ounce of me should have gotten up and moved or sat somewhere else or whatever, but I'm in a group of strangers. I've never met any of these people before. I'm just trying to like enjoy a nice night out on a patio because we have so few of those in Houston. And so I just sat there and I just suffered.
I've done that.
So stupid in hindsight. But there's no nice way to say, hey, I think whatever scent you have is lovely, but you're killing me. Could you please, like, could someone switch chairs with me? Because there's no way to, like, say, hey, can someone switch spots with me without explaining why? So it puts you in a really difficult position socially often when
Half,
you
yeah.
suddenly find yourself in need of some change or accommodation or whatever that is really on the verge of offending someone or, really messing with the dynamic, the social dynamic, making it awkward or uncomfortable. And I find that, like, as far as ways that it has changed the way I exist, I'm so much more aware of those things all the time, just
Yeah.
all the time.
And it speaks to like just how much this stuff impacts our lives. Like
Mhm.
it depending on like the social situation. If it's at a job, you might have to feel like you need to handle it differently. If if let's say it's your new boss wearing something, right, or like a new coworker that you need to have a good working relationship with, or let's say you're dating somebody, it's their parents. I'm supposed to go to one of my partner's houses for Thanksgiving, which
Mhm.
is later this, which is coming up, and
Mhm.
their house is so fragrant that I'm like, okay, so I can do this. I'm going to need to be heavily medicated and wearing a mask.
Mhm.
Even then, it'll probably still bother me. They love like scent beads and stuff. But I'm
No,
also like really happy to be invited and go to spend
of
time with my
course.
partner's family.
Yeah.
And it's too cold to be outside. So, you know, and I'm like, just, like I'm not going to be very useful for the Friendsgiving we're hosting the day after
Mhm.
because I'm probably going to not be as functional after that. And I might
Yeah.
need someone to come pick me up and drive me home, or you might need to leave and take me home. Um, like, no matter how much medication I take, it's probably not going to be enough to make that an accessible environment for me.
Right.
Um, and then them and their kids are going to have to shower when we get back to the house because they will smell like it. I will also
Yeah.
need to shower. I will need to wash my hair likely multiple times.
Yeah.
Um, for those listeners who have not seen us, both Candace and I have like big curly hair. Um,
Which means very
and
porous. It soaks up
it's
every
very
scent
porous.
and it just stays
Every
there.
scent. That has
Uh-huh.
been okay. This is a silly thing to add, and we have so many other questions I want to talk about. But
I
like,
know we gotta
as
we
far
gotta
as
get through it.
as far as how this impacts my life, okay, this is my biggest. There are so many little things about mastocytosis that could drive me crazy, and a lot of them do, more or less. The thing that drives me the most like up a wall is how often I have to wash my hair because of fragrances.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody listening has curly hair, you know how much freaking work it is to do your hair. And I really
Mm-hmm.
like when it looks a certain way. And
Yeah.
it's gotten to the point where I plan my week sometimes around when I have to go places because
I
I have two options. I can
100% plan it around my hair.
wash my hair when I get home because it makes me so sick. And then those are the times where I'm like, does it bother me or am I actually having allergic? Like, do I not
Yeah.
like it or,
Yeah.
and sometimes I would just make myself suffer because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to wash my hair.
I do
I'm
it
too
too.
stubborn for my own good sometimes.
I do it too.
And more often than not, I'm like making myself suffer. Like I don't mean to. I'm like trying to like be like, okay, but is this really bothering you? And the fact of the matter is, it
Mm-hmm.
likely is if I was thinking about it in the first place. And the other option between like just having to get home and wash my hair is I have a hat that I keep in my purse that's got
Mm-hmm.
like a satin lining in it. It's like a beanie, and I've just started wearing that over my hair because something about like the synthetic satin and the hat, like it 9 times out of 10 keeps the fragrances from getting to my hair, but it
Mm-hmm.
also means that like it really affects between wearing face masks, which I do for multiple reasons, like both like I'm COVID conscious, but also I have allergic reactions, so I was going to be wearing one anyway. And putting a hat on, people don't interact with me in public anymore. Like I'm a really social, extroverted person,
Yeah.
and so I really miss a lot of those casual interactions because I don't get to have them because people kind of look at me. I'm like a petite femme, bubbly, like girly shaped human, and so like normally people approach me, but when I look
Hmm.
like that, when I'm taking care of myself, they don't anymore, and that's been like a strange thing to adapt to.
Yeah.
You know, it's every little facet of your life.
Hmm. You don't, I think that it's almost impossible to fully answer the question because you can't, well, A, it's not really all that interesting to enumerate every single
I
solitary
know,
way,
right?
even though I think people who live with it appreciate hearing what other people deal with too. But it truly comes down to it's now part of your life, and probably by the time you're diagnosed, it's because your symptoms have become severe enough that you've been down every possible rabbit hole trying
Yeah.
to find an answer. Once you have an answer, it's great because now you have a path forward. You have some idea about what's causing the things and how to treat those things. But ultimately, yeah, your whole life becomes, all right, how do I manage this and still feel okay? If not good, okay. How do I manage this and still feel okay? And
Yeah.
sometimes that does. I know when I first started my job, it was rough. But anyway, we don't have to keep going down that because that's just that is what it is. I
We'll swing back. We'll make a whole episode out of it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it many times over.
Yeah.
Um, but another question was, has this changed like life perspective? And I feel like it's a really interesting and a really deep question that almost requires more thought from me than just off the cuff. But I know that some of it is sad. So some of it is, you're told, or if you have disabled friends or if you know disabled people, most of them will tell you you can become disabled at any point in time, right? Like no
And
one is
everybody
immune
will,
to it. Everyone, and it
as
can
you
happen at
age, if you
any
live long
time.
enough.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But literally it could be tomorrow if you're 20. It doesn't matter. So it's possible for anybody, but suddenly being faced with I've had a couple of moments this year where I've had some other health issues that have exacerbated my SM, and I have not been functional. And I'm at a new job. It's a really scary thing to not be functional at a new job when you don't have like the
Hmm.
trust of your coworkers. They don't know your work ethic or who you are as a person. They don't know the kind of work you do yet, really. And you don't have a lot of time off. So you're just
Right.
stuck here trying to push through. And I had a real moment where it was, like this could be the moment. Like this could be the moment where everything I've worked for in my life and everything that I have and this position that I'm in now and all of this could be gone because my body isn't cooperating and I can't figure out what to do to get it back on track. And that will change your perspective really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I recognize in no longer an intellectual way, but in a very real way, the way we all come to these conclusions once we're living it. It's like you can recognize it intellectually and acknowledge it for people who go through it, but it's just always different when it's you going through it. And yeah, that was a real eye opener for me. I think though, on a it's going to sound negative, but on a positive, the perspective. So it's a couple things. I've had to learn how to advocate for myself in a way that I've always been fiery and pretty opinionated. But when you go into a doctor's office and you've been told over and over again, you're wrong, that's not what's happening, we can't find anything wrong with
Mm.
you, blah, 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 you really start to question yourself. And it's not,
Yeah.
you don't trust it anymore. So in those scenarios, I had become pretty passive. And with a diagnosis, I no longer had to feel passive. No, I probably am the expert in the room, barring, of course, the actual expert I see now. But generally speaking, at a doctor's office, I know better than you do. I'm sorry. I know that's hard to hear, but as far as my disease goes, I understand it better than you do. So I'm asking you to come along on the journey with me and like let's figure this out together. And I'm much more capable of doing that than I was before. because I feel strongly that I am, that's always been the case for me. When I know that I have this subject matter under control, I can feel
Hmm.
pretty empowered to handle it. Now, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of the science. But I'm just saying, like, as far as basic mechanisms of
Yeah.
SM and how my body reacts. Um, and
You're an expert on your own experience.
yeah, and um, that's been a real positive and like a perspective shift for me that I can go in, because it used to be that a doctor's office, especially right after my diagnosis, was a source of uh, anguish, like mental and emotional anguish. I would have to like rally myself to even walk in and look the person in the eye without feeling an immense amount of anxiety. And I would almost always end up in my car crying afterwards because I was unheard, because I was dismissed, because, maybe one time it was because, oh my God, someone finally listened to me. But for the most part, it was. So I feel like I'm a stronger person for that, to be able to advocate for myself and to be ready to do it at any time. And it's, maybe that sounds like a lot, but it's really empowering too. And I'm prepared for that now, and it's part of my life now. And I feel like that's all right. I'm okay with that.
I think that's an awesome like takeaway from it. I think I feel like more empowered and like taking care of myself, in so
Mm-hmm.
to speak, in a way that I don't think I. It's hard to say because like I got diagnosed at 21, so I feel like that's a time in my life, like a time in most people's lives, where like you're like starting to figure out how to get
Yeah.
comfortable with things like that. And it kind
Mm-hmm.
of popped up at a time where I was like already kind of transitioning from like childhood, teenage years to adulthood. Um, and so like sometimes I think about like what I would be like as a person if I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
known about this. And honestly, I think I like myself a lot better as the person I am than as the person I would have probably ended up being if this hadn't
Mm-hmm.
come into my life. Like, I guess it was always destined to because genetics, but
Sure.
right. But like, I guess like in my head when I think
I
about this like
understand what you mean.
fictitiously,
Yeah.
um, and I think it's man, I have brain fog. I keep having like thoughts and then they keep running away from me.
No, I did the same thing. I think I said three things and then I mentioned one thing because then I couldn't remember the other two things. So
All
I get
fair.
it. It's fine. It'll all come back.
We
I,
can
you know,
count. We just can't remember things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just
yeah.
in case you're listening.
Yeah, you mentioned that, like how you imagined your life, and there's definitely that for sure. Like I know now that when I expose myself to heat, and that sensitivity has gotten worse over time, like significantly worse over time, um, that I'm miserable to be around because I'm kind of a jerk. I'm like mad the whole time. I also get really foggy. I don't want to do anything. I become pretty lethargic. So like camping is something I also love to do and have done for a really long time as part of like a main like hobby, I guess, or activity.
Hmm.
Um, and since my diagnosis, I don't know, I've maybe gone camping twice, and I live in Texas. That's part of the problem. We never get a break in heat. I mean, my goodness, it's almost December and we've had like one cold night and everything else has been hot.
You'll have to come camping out where I live. I live closer to Philadelphia, so
Yeah, I would love to find a
you get
place
some
where it allows
spray.
me.
The weather's
But I
all
will
over the place.
say, I've been struggling with like finding the energy to do things, the want to do things. And I think part of that
Yeah.
is a new diagnosis. So mine's new to me,
Hmm.
um, is coping with it too, which can bring on other issues like mental health issues, depression issues. I'm still very much working through like the grief of it, like
It's
the things
heavy.
that when you don't have a diagnosis and you think you're just a normal person who's having some health crisis, or not even crisis, just a health problem, I
You
mean,
think
when
you'll
I
go
was in
back to
that,
normal, I presume.
yeah, I'll go back to
Yeah.
normal. I will get better and then I'll be normal and then my life will go back to normal. And my life will never go back to normal. That's not going to
You have a new
happen.
normal now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's a whole
coping with
adjustment.
that is hard. And it leaves you in a place of I don't know. Maybe some people can pick themselves up and dust themselves off and move on really quickly. I think I did that partially. I mean, I'm doing this podcast. I speak at different events. about my
I'd say
story
that's
in
pretty
hopes of
resilient.
helping people, and I'm trying, but I still have my own struggles and my own yeah, it's never going to be the same. I'm never going to be able to go back to the girl who could camp as long as even then I didn't camp in summer, but um it's such a narrow range now for me to do that. And I was doing yoga last night. She had burned some incense. Usually that doesn't bother me as long as it's not like going right then or whatever, but I don't know how long she'd had it going. But beyond that, it was, kind of a focus session on doing some real work. And it wasn't just a relaxing, easy flow. It was like work. And by the end of it, I was wheezing. I was dizzy. I never work out and feel good. I always work out and feel like my limbs are lead and my brain is mush. And so, I just don't have these coping mechanisms. Like, working out doesn't feel like a coping mechanism to me. It's just something that I have to do to, function. I feel worse after I do something like that. And yeah, so perspective shifting, there's that too. You're really suddenly like, oh, this is my new normal. This is what is normal for me now. And it's never going to
It,
be what it was before. And there's no amount of medications that will make it that. So finding what works now is a process that I'm personally still going through. Um, but whatever, you take it as it comes and you figure it out.
so I think I've had a lot of people tell me like, "Oh my God, you like they'll visibly I don't like look disabled. It doesn't it's
Sure,
an
of course.
invisible disability." So I'll
Hmm.
have people say to me like if I explain what's going on and they've already gotten to know me, they'll be like, "Oh wow, you have such a good attitude." Like and I want to be like, "I'm sorry, was
What's
there an
my other
alternative
choice?
option that
Right.
I just wasn't did I was there another box I could have checked?" Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be myself regardless because that's like I'm not I don't. I mean, I absolutely have days where I'm just like, woe is me, and I'm moping around and I'm sad
Sure.
about things, especially around my period. I'm like a very cranky human. But for the most part, I'm a pretty upbeat person. And I think that, like, that is, I think, I wish I hadn't. Like, I think it's probably a common thing among people who are pretty resilient. Like, no one wants to have to be resilient, but it's, like,
Mm.
useful that
Yeah.
I mean,
I
mostly
mean,
I
I don't
get
want to
bored sitting around
wallow.
too much, so I can't be
Yeah,
too
yeah,
depressed because I
yeah,
get
yeah,
too
yeah.
bored.
I don't want to
Um,
wallow in it either. I mean, I feel like resilience is definitely the better alternative. It's like
but
doing something.
for the record, I know that being depressed and being bored are not like that's not how actual depression works. I am being facetious. In case anybody was paying attention, but I think that like the things that it's changed my perspective about really everything. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about disability when I got diagnosed,
Mm,
and a lot of that's like age related. I didn't,
sure.
I was at, I think like in your very early 20s, everyone kind of believes that they're invincible, and that was a
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
interesting phenomena. Like getting diagnosed at the same time my friends were like, you know, in their I'm invincible phase. I mean, now that I'm in
Yeah.
my like mid to late 30s, like everyone's like wants to go to bed a lot earlier and do all the things, and I'm like, guys, I was like,
It's
I'm
been
as
my
much
life
like
forever.
I'm ready to go out and have fun. What are you guys doing? Like, get up, let's go do stuff. I was like, I did this a decade ago. Like, you guys are
Hmm.
behind. Come on, catch up. But it's also like really shifted my perspective about like, you know, and I think if I had been older when I got diagnosed, I probably would have, from other experiences or reading about stuff or other people I knew, would have kind of come to this differently. But like, I was still under the impression that like the systems that exist societally are there to protect you if something bad happens, and that's I think an illusion that goes away really quickly. The disability process is really dehumanizing, and I think the ADA is not well enforced or enforceable.
Mm-mm.
Workplace discrimination happens, and there's not great ways to handle it. Like, and all of this sounds really depressing, but I promise I'm getting to something less depressing. And like at the same time, like when you start looking at that stuff and you start exploring why those things are the way they are, I feel like other societal things I've been told growing up kind of fell by the wayside.
Hmm.
For me, one of those was monogamy.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like when I stopped fitting into society, I stopped trying to fit into society. Like, I was like, well, I don't
Hmm.
fit. I might as well just stop trying as much and just kind of embrace like who I am as a person more.
Hmm.
You know, it not that it like made me non-monogamous or anything, but it made me more
Allowed you
curious
the
about other
opportunity.
lifestyles
Yeah.
and like being
Yeah.
like, well, why do we do it this way? Like just because everyone's always told us to, or is it something I
Right.
want to explore and kind of look at and see if this really does feel like the right fit for me? And I
Hmm.
may have ended up like in another lifetime, or if I was somebody else, might have decided that that did work for me. But I think that these are things that we should like explore and examine for ourselves. And then you know, gender, sexuality, like all of these things that we kind of are more put upon us, and not everybody I think sits down and like thinks about them. But for me, when these obvious building blocks kind of fell, it like kind of made me want to examine how I felt about other things in my life. And I think that like in all those cases, I'm like a much more authentic version of myself. And I really love that. I love, it's led me to surrounding myself with people who are really kind and empathetic, because they're the ones who are cool about having to accommodate me. I remember like in my mid-20s, I had all these friends that I had from when I was younger, before I had any, you know, health issues. And then my health issues became more impactful. And I realized that at some point I just stopped trying as hard with the friends who weren't meeting me where I was. You know, not even just friends, but like other people in my life, coworkers, family. Like I want to put my energy and time, which is more limited than it used to be, especially having mastocytosis, into people who wanted to show me the same amount of care. And I feel
it
like
definitely shows you who your people are.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and so like it's made me a better advocate, like you were saying. It's made me a better advocate for a lot of other things. I love advocating for other people's disabilities. I think that we should all be taking care of one another, whether you're disabled or not. Like accessibility genuinely helps everybody.
Benefits everyone, yeah. If not
You
now,
know,
then later. Yep.
right. And like there's so many things like okay, like having the cut curbs for wheelchairs are also great for people with baby strollers, right? Or like someone who's on crutches for the time being, or whatever. Like there's a billion other things you could think of. And there's so many, like, do I wish I didn't have mastocytosis? Sure. But I also really like who it's made me become.
Yeah.
And it's given me more space to spend time on things I really care about. Because I'm not able to work a full-time job.
Right. Yeah, it does shift perspective. I do think that I mean, this is like a whole episode I want to do. I have it on the list whenever you're looking at it. But kind of the science of gratitude, and I mean that as in science, like studied, you know, and looked at, and how it leads to resilience and how it leads to like happier, healthier lives, because we're focused on the things that we're grateful for and that are working for us, and not focused on the things that are maybe taking away from our life or whatever. And I've been practicing that myself for a long time. My first, well, maybe it's like my second kind of major depressive episode. There was a day when I realized that I just didn't find any joy in anything at all that day, and I couldn't think of anything good. And I was like, that can't be right. Like something that day happened, whether it was a simple conversation with a coworker or whether it was something that at the time I worked in HIV case management, and my clients were hilarious. And sometimes they were, you know, I was able to do things for them that made me feel good or whatever. So like I got real weird about it. And I started literally just saying it out loud in the scenarios where I felt happy, like just to whoever was in front of me. And it made for some awkward pauses and people looking at me like I was pretty crazy, but I would just out loud say, I'm so happy right now, or I'm so grateful that, you know, we're doing this right now or whatever, to really build on that. And I do find that I have to like practice that maybe a little bit more right now, because sometimes I mean, right now is okay, but a couple months ago was not, and it was a lot harder. I'd gone through a bout of anemia, which is not uncommon for people with SM. I think that's worth noting. We have absorption issues and don't always get from our food and other things, the things that we need for our bodies to work. And I am very convinced that anemia dramatically increased my reactivity. I mean, I know it. Like, I can't prove it, but I know it. And that was a real rough time. And it's hard to sort of see the silver linings when you're kind of in a spiral like that. But I do feel like the thing that I have had to kind of realign myself with and remind myself of is that nonetheless, there's a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot of joy to still be had. There's a lot of beauty still in the world, even if I have to experience it differently now. But ultimately, everyone's going to have to experience it differently at some point in their life. That's just what life is. It's not promised to you. It's not guaranteed. And so you find it where you can, or you're real sad all the time. And that's a bummer.
And like I also recognize that like a lot of the things that I'm able to do with my time are like I'm very privileged to have the ability to do those things. It's like I think your circumstances like really heavily like there's a lot of societal stuff that's stacked up against us, and so like I guess I wanted to acknowledge that because I feel like it's ignorant not to, right? Like there's circumstances that other people are going to be experiencing that like
Oh yeah, of course.
not that you weren't saying that. I just feel like what I said kind of
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
wanted to just kind of acknowledge that if anybody listening has had like a different set of
Totally.
circumstances, that's probably going to look really different, and it might like if you don't feel
And they
really
may not have
positively about something,
support at
that's
all,
okay too.
or yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody's situation is going to be different for sure. But I mean, like in my support group, I feel like I see some folks who are really overwhelmed by it and who are
Hmm.
struggling and have for many, many, many years. And I still see resilience in them. I still see
Oh,
positivity, and
absolutely.
I still see them finding, yeah, they have a lot to be upset about, to be mad about, to be overwhelmed by, and feel all those feelings for sure.
Hmm.
And then I still watch them, and I'm always inspired by them, the ways that some of them, the challenges they're facing are immense, hard to really imagine, and yet they still find ways to help other people by being part of the support group and to like laugh and joke and find joy. So I I think I think I've learned that I'm more resilient than I thought I was,
I think that's
and that I'll
probably a
figure it out.
common, you know, outcome for folks who like get handed a plate of things they didn't expect to navigate. So you said something earlier, and I wanted to ask you more about it. You were talking about
Mm,
being an advocate for
mm,
yourself.
mm-hmm,
And I think that's a really important part of navigating being a patient, especially with a disease that's really rare, whether it's this one
mm-hmm.
or something else, like things that doctors wouldn't have as much expertise in. So, like, what are your tips for being your own advocate that you'd want to share with people?
It's a good question, and I think it'll probably look different for everybody. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
for me, I'm extremely vocal, and I'm happy to like tell everybody everything all the time. So, it's been exciting in a way. So I'm not happy to have the diagnosis, but now that I do, it's been exciting to be able to connect with so many people and to advocate for myself and for them, to have a voice in rooms where specialists are and all that. But not everybody can do that or wants to do that or should. Like, I'm not saying that's where people should go. It's all about what you
Mm-hmm.
are looking for. But I think at the most basic, to your doctors, unfortunately or fortunately, because I really enjoy this stuff, you have to become really knowledgeable about your disease. And that means really digging into the TMS website. That means following links to research articles and slogging through them. That means, but the more knowledge you have and the more understanding you have of your disease, the better you can advocate for yourself because you'll feel
Mm-hmm.
confident about the questions you have or the concerns that you're raising. I think having resources, whether you bring it in a binder with you to your doctors or whether it's something you send to them through my chart and links or whatever, being able to, it's just like a little shield, like little armor that you can bring into a doctor's office with you. I think for me, I literally, this is so dorky, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. I literally practice the conversations I'm going to have beforehand. So I knew without a doubt that the first GI doctor I saw after my diagnosis was going to tell me I had anxiety. And I am
Mm-hmm.
not going to have this conversation with another GI doctor who knows nothing about me or my anxiety and refuses to do anything to actually find out what's wrong with me. You're not going to tell me I have anxiety. So I like rehearsed. You will not let them tell you that. You will say, like, no, you don't treat me for that. I have people who treat me for that. That's none of your business. Your
I don't
business
think
is
that's
what my
silly at
GI
all.
issues are. And so I found that, like, doing that and really, like, prepping myself allowed for when it inevitably happened, and it did. I told him, no, that's not your area of expertise. I know when my anxiety is affecting my stomach or I know when it's an
Same.
anxiety issue versus something else. You're not treating my anxiety, you're treating me for my GI issues, and I have a problem that you're not fixing. So we need to fix the problem. Only then did he say, well, it kind of sounds like maybe it's gallbladder. And it was. So he was happy to send me on my way, telling me I needed to get my anxiety under control. Anyway, that's like an anecdote.
That's a whole nother episode. I have big thoughts. I've had so many
Run-ins
similar
like
and
that.
equally awful run-ins.
But as far as tips for advocating for yourself, look at yourself in a mirror and practice it. You kind of know what you're going to get. You kind of know what's coming for you. Have notes. Like I put so many notes on my phone. So when I go into my doctor's office, I'm looking at it. And I've also taught myself. I don't know about other people. I am a people pleaser and I know that. I also don't love
Me
silence.
too.
I like to be like, okay, I'm going into a doctor's office. There are other patients after me. We're already running late. My doctor's time is valuable, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to take up too much of his time. And then I get like all, or her time, and I get all like weird about it, right? I have also coached myself.
And then they think you're more anxious because you're talking too fast.
Yeah, because
But
you're
I'm
like
just like,
trying to get
I have
through.
15 minutes to go over my
Yes.
entire life story with you and get help.
Yes. But and probably you're not really listening to me anyway because you're not interested in all of that. But I have coached myself and I still have to remind myself it is okay to take a breath. It's
Hmm.
okay to say, wait, I have other questions. Let me pull those up and I will just sit there and I will read through them to see if they've answered each one. And I
Yep, same.
just, this is my life, this is my health, and I have lots of questions and I need them answered. And too frequently, you're brushed off or moved on. And I just, I've gone from, going to a doctor and then after sitting in my car crying to feeling more empowered to take control of the situation because I can and we can and anyone can. And if you have a doctor who won't accept that, you can also leave that doctor. I think that's the other thing that I had to. I had my support group telling me over and over again, Candice, I don't think that doctor's right for you. Candice, I think you should look for another doctor. And I kept making excuses and making whatever. And finally, I did, and they were so right. I needed to find another doctor.
And I recognize that like that's not a in our society, at least in the United States, where insurance is it's a whole
Of
thing.
course,
It's
yeah.
and Medicaid recipients can't get care out of state. There's like I mean
Or
there's so
if
many
you're
layers to it.
rural, you may only have one doctor, and that's your
Right.
only choice. Of course.
Totally keeping that in mind. But so like what I would usually like I totally agree with you. What the things I usually tell people are so like it kind of echoes something you said, but I've said it I don't know if I've said it on here before, but like I have told doctors like someone told me I was catastrophizing by asking questions and
Ugh.
I had to write an email later. Luckily, it actually went really well that I wrote this email. I was having bad
Hmm.
brain fog. She was wearing perfume, so like I was already at a disadvantage. And
A
it was about an
doctor.
issue that I was feeling really anxious about, like in general, because I didn't know how to, like it was new. I didn't know how to solve it. It was like when there's a new, when I get like new and unexpected problems, that's when I feel like it triggers my anxiety a little bit.
Hmm.
But similarly, I'm also a people pleaser. I don't want to bother anybody. Like,
Hmm.
you know, I can do it more than I used to, but like I try to be really conscientious about how my
Yeah,
behavior affects other people, and I can't like turn it off even if I wanted to.
I know. It's annoying.
But I will tell doctors like this is your job, but this is my life. Like if I don't ask these questions, who will?
Hmm.
Right? That was a reasonable question given the circumstances.
Hmm.
And she agreed with me. She called me afterwards and apologized in that instance. And we have a great working relationship, thankfully, because she's awesome and she's been like
Hmm.
really helpful. But other things I would tell people would be like, you are your own best expert on yourself.
Hmm.
You don't need a medical degree to know what your experience is. And if doctors tell you like, and I think it's important to recognize that doctors have medical expertise, but they are still humans. They still have their
Yeah,
own biases, they have their own opinions, they have their own
absolutely.
limitations, and their training may not have covered all the things that you need
And if
them to
they're a
know.
specialist, they're a specialist. And that's something I've had to
Right.
remind myself of often when you see a specialist. That's what they know, and that's kind of all they know. They have their medical school training and stuff, but if they've been in it for a long time, that's what their focus is, and it can be hard for them to like expand out from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and a lot of times what my body is doing doesn't match their experience because it's an
Hmm.
anomaly. Like, and that's not just for mast cell disease folks or even specifically mastocytosis. It's just like there's a lot of unusual diseases out there that don't impact, like that makes what's happening with you look different than what they saw in their textbooks.
Hmm.
And depending on what demographic you fall into, you might not have even been in the textbooks, really. And so there's so I tell people like remember that you are an expert. If you I find that this is I particularly say this to people who are younger and like female presenting, if you have someone you can bring with you to support what you're saying, that could be beneficial. When I was in my early 20s, no doctors, especially the male doctors, wouldn't listen to what I was saying.
Yeah.
They
Somehow having someone male in the room,
I I would
something
either
they
bring my
take so
mom
much more seriously.
or
Oh, moms are good too.
my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom can be a little intimidating in those circumstances, so I think I put that to
Yeah.
good use. She was
Mhm.
really helpful and supportive, and like, and even if my partner, who's a guy, just sat there and didn't say anything, like somehow like him just nodding to what I was saying.
Mhm.
Um, Also, writing down a list of your questions.
Yes.
Write down even the ones you're not sure you're going to ask
Always.
and put them at the
Yeah.
very bottom. But you will be rushed. So, like,
Yes.
insurance companies will only give the doctor 15 minutes for the most
Yeah.
part, depending on the provider. New patients sometimes get a little bit longer. Um, and even the best of doctors feel rushed because of the way that our
Mhm.
system works. Um, you can say things like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I have more questions. I'd like to keep talking." Or like,
Mhm.
"Actually, before you go, I have more questions I want to ask. I've been waiting several months for this appointment."
Yeah,
Um,
especially in that circumstance.
yeah. Also, you know, doctors do not remember everything. I've had doctors recommend medications that would have been counterintuitive for other conditions I have. I have a
Mhm.
clotting disorder, and I keep getting recommended like NSAIDs for different things. And I'm like, are you sure that I can take it with this disease?
Mhm.
And they'll be like, oh, wait, actually, you can't take it. So, like, if something doesn't sound true to you, ask a question.
Mhm.
If someone recommends a medication and you're not sure about it, ask them to explain what their rationale is, right? Like, so I'm a little hesitant about this because of this reason. Can you go over with me
Mhm.
what's your thought process about this? Like, what are the benefits that you think I'll get from this? And what are the drawbacks? Like, what are the things I should be looking out for? Not necessarily, you're not trying to be a hypochondriac. You're not like, I'm going to have all these side effects, but it's good to know like what you're looking out for.
Mhm.
You can do your own homework too, but like
I
just
would also, and
ask questions.
yeah, to all of those points, I think it's really helpful to keep reminding people that TMS has resources that you can print
Yes.
out, that you can write down, that you can keep with you. Um, and they can even be filled out by a specialist so that you have something backing you up when you go into another office. So there are ways, like I know for me, I like to have someone else having done the work have a form that makes it really easy for me to say, okay, this is what I need to do sometimes, because my brain can otherwise be pretty scattered. For me, I keep it in my phone. So I have a note that has my doctor's name, and anytime I think of something that I want to address, I have that. I would also, this is maybe
I do
only
that too.
tangential to advocacy, but if you have my chart, if your facility uses my chart and you can log
Hmm.
in and you can have it on your phone or whatever, um, more and more, at least my doctors are very responsive on my chart. So you can ask questions in between as well. Or if you have a concern or something pops up, you can send a like non-urgent medical question to your provider. And at least personally, I've had really good luck there, and they've been really responsive and open to in between appointment kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I've had a couple doctors that are good about it, and I've had a couple doctors that aren't. And so the doctors that aren't, one of them is the local specialist. I
Hmm.
hesitate. I mean, he's anyway. But the doctor that locally treats my mastocytosis, and he was really hard to get a hold of. And I think I was just looking for like a refill for something, but I couldn't get a hold of his. Like it was just like getting lost in the leaving a message for one person for another person,
Hmm.
and yada, like
Hmm.
playing Wizard down the lane. And so my next appointment, I asked him. I said, "What is the best way for me to get a hold of you?" Because
Hmm.
I tried this and I've tried that and it didn't work. I got a cell phone number.
Great.
I don't know
Ideal.
how I have wormed my way into. I have multiple doctors' cell phone numbers and personal
Yeah, that's
addresses.
great.
Um, I can be a bit of a kiss ass, and I think it's worked out for my benefit. Um,
No, but I think that's
do
a
what you need to
great
do to take care
suggestion.
of yourself. Yeah, like
Mhm.
and not, they're likely not going to give you their personal phone number, but they may have a
Mhm.
work phone,
Mhm.
or they may be like, here. I've had other doctors be like, here's a direct line for my nurse practitioner. Excuse me. And like you can ask other questions. And like the story you told earlier, where you were like, I know this guy's going to tell me that I just have anxiety. What
Mhm.
I would do, and I've heard this echoed by other disability advocates, is be like, okay, if that's what you think is wrong with me, I'd like you to write down that you're refusing to test me for anything else.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Put it on their
Mhm.
liability insurance. Like,
Yeah,
not
maybe
that,
don't do it
like
my way where you yell at them, but
that is also a tactic and it can be successful, but like, I've had I've had a weird, like, it depends on who you get too. Like, I've had people who, I wrote that one email to that doctor and we have a great working relationship now. And I had another where they were trying to convince me that people with mastocytosis couldn't take aspirin. And I personally cannot because of the clotting disorder I mentioned.
Sure, but some can.
But I wanted them to know that as a specialist at a major hospital that that they should know that has been disproven because there are other there's other patients who will benefit from it. And so I had to comment on something in my records anyway. I was going through the disability process and they wrote something down in a very inaccurate way. And I was like, can you fix this? Not only did they refuse to fix it, but I tried to also send them the research showing that it had, that guidance had shifted. And at my next appointment, it was like 6 months later, she must have remembered it and was like, actually like a little bit hostile. And I literally had to interrupt my appointment to be like, it seems like I've offended you and I want to apologize. Like, I'd like to be able to move on with our appointment. I'm apologizing. I was trying to give you extra, like, I said it really politely and stuff, but it was like, and I think there's a balancing
But it puts the onus
act.
on you to have to, like, diffuse a situation where you just had factual information. They were incorrect.
It was not a very mature response on
But
her
I do
end,
think
in my
it's
opinion.
kind of to what you said before and what I remind myself of all the time. They're just people too, and so they're not going to always behave the most professionally. They're not always going to do everything exactly right because they're just human. They're not always going to remember everything. So it's really easy in our circles to get really heavily into like raging about our experiences with medical professionals and physicians, but we're both dealing with something because I can't stop.
I know, I'm hiccuping now too.
But it is important to remember that they are people. And I think that it's really important. Part of advocacy for yourself and part of being an advocate, even if it's just for you, is really learning how to build a team that will advocate for you as well. And so I just wanted to throw this out there kind of while we're talking about physicians and that sort of thing. The number one question I had when I was first diagnosed was, who on earth treats this? Who do I see? What do I need? And I had no guidance on that. So thankfully, support groups exist on social media and through TMS and all that. And I was able to kind of learn. So I found a hematologist who would take me. I know we talked about that last episode. Thankfully, I've now been able to see a specialist, but that really wasn't cutting it. And so I found an immunologist. And that was really where things started to change for me, was having an immunologist who was familiar with systemic mastocytosis and mast cell diseases in general. Not an expert in it, but familiar. And she was really able to start helping me get symptom control in place. So I think that building your team and finding the right doctors and being willing to say, okay, that doctor's not working for me, I need to find another, which can be exhausting because then you have to go through the whole process again. If you have to get referrals, there's that. So it's not as easy as just doing it. I do recognize that. It wasn't easy for me either, and I have access to probably hundreds of thousands of doctors in Houston, at the very least tens of thousands. So I recognize the hardship there, but really that's part of that advocacy and working through the discomfort when you can. You know, for me it took time because I just didn't have the bandwidth at the moment to try and change something. But when I was able to, and really find a team that cared, it also bolstered me, right? I felt like I had enough people, enough professionals around me who were listening, who were taking seriously what I had, and who were willing to learn. And that was a big part of it too.
I'm going to be honest, I feel like I've had a hard time finding a care team that I really can like trust. I have a few individual doctors that I really have great relationships with. And I ask them they're all specialists. And I ask them a bunch of questions that probably have nothing to do with their specialty on a routine basis because like they're the ones I trust. And they don't ever talk to each other. I would have to coordinate that myself. I found it even a struggle to get like, I was getting an endoscopy and needed like pre-treatment because of something else. And I like getting my doctor to talk to my other doctor and get the information I needed. That was even a struggle. And that was like a very relevant standard interaction between medical providers. So it's navigable, even if you can't put together like a collective team that really works on your behalf. However, I think that would really take off a lot of pressure if you could.
I mean, I say team, but I really mean they were disparate people. They just happened to all work and like they weren't communicating. So that maybe I'm that term isn't ideal.
Wouldn't it be great if they did though? Like I really wish they.
It
Or you
would.
guys could just text each other.
If they were all on the same Epic system. So at least some of my doctors are on the same systems. They can access my records even across practices. So they might not be communicating, but they can see my tests or like notes or whatever from other providers, which is helpful. Now that I'm at MD Anderson, they do work as a team, so they are all communicating about you, which is a really cool place to be, and I'm very, very, very fortunate to have it. But yeah, early days was rough. It was hard to find people who were willing to even be curious, to like learn,
Mhm.
to accept that maybe I do know more. My first hematologist was not open to that, and I realized that pretty quickly. But at the time, I was like, well, I'm doing okay, and I have my immunologist who's like treating my symptoms, so I really just need him to prescribe my Ayvakit and do the
Mhm.
tryptase test. That's it. That's all I need. But I
Yeah.
realized, no, maybe that's not enough because none of them know a whole lot about it. But that's all that, yeah. So anyway, we've been talking for like forever, but
I know. It was
that's all
probably.
part of the self advocacy, and I'm sure I'll think of other things too. That I'll kick myself for not having said. But I do think that practice it. Like,
Mhm.
especially if you're prone to freezing up in the moment, or like give yourself as many tools as you can that help remind you, notes, binders, whatever that looks like, and then practice engaging. And, maybe don't practice being aggressive, maybe practice being very diplomatic and lovely about it. But it helps. It genuinely helps.
Yeah,
You have some kind of muscle memory there, and it's helpful.
I agree. And I think while we're right before we wrap this up, I wanted to
Mhm.
ask tips for favorite coping mechanisms. Do you have anything out there?
Oh, I have a ton of coping mechanisms. It's mostly my hobbies, and I collect
Same.
those like it's a hobby.
Hobbies
So
are my
I
hobby.
exactly,
Just having.
literally,
I feel
yeah,
like if
that's
anybody who
literally it.
says that, I was like, do you have ADHD?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, so I mean, I think it's all about finding the thing that brings you some kind of joy, and that is whatever it is, and then leaning into it and really embracing it. Maybe if you're one, I like finding community in things, so finding community in it is nice, whether it's virtual or in person. I have several I host a knitting group, and then I go to a couple of other knitting groups, and um, so fiber arts is one of those things. It's a nice meditative thing that I can do, and I also get to make something. And on those days when if I'm too fatigued and brain foggy, then it doesn't work because then I pick it up the next day and I'm like, what did I do? I don't know what I'm looking at now. Um, but on, just a tired day, it's a good one. My partner and I play music, so he's really into bluegrass and he plays the mandolin, and I go to jams and sing with friends, and that's a real joy. We go to concerts when we can, although that's something about my life that has changed. The pain that I experience daily makes going and standing at a show just
hmm
almost like that's not really something I do anymore. Very rarely, and I really pay for it later. So um, we don't do as much of that as we used to. So being able to make music with friends is really nice. I really just think whatever it is that brings you joy is what you should really lean into. Um,
I agree.
Obviously working out would be great if you can. Taking walks is, I think, all the things that like a psychiatrist or a psychologist would tell you are good for your mental health but I like to do that in community. I don't love doing those things solo. It's
Oh,
just not something I enjoy very much. Knitting's
I get
fine.
bored doing it solo. Honestly,
Totally.
most things.
Yeah,
I'm a very social person.
same. I
I
want to sit and knit with other people. I want my friends to come over and help me garden, or just sit there and talk to me while I garden or whatever.
And a
Yeah.
lot of that can be virtual for folks. Like I know that I've only met a few people who have fragrance sensitivities worse than mine, but I know some of those people like it's leaving their house is really hard. Or
Mhm.
I've heard of other folks with other triggers that made it really hard to leave their house.
Mhm.
And a lot of this stuff can be done virtually. Like
Totally.
um, I feel like we keep talking about
TMS
TMS,
has a knitting
but
group.
they have a
Yeah.
lot of really
Yeah.
useful support groups.
Mhm.
And they have and like that might not be everybody's thing, but like if you're looking for a place to turn that you need some kind of community, like that's a great starting point to figure out what does work for you. Um,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
me, I love creating community. I'm really good at
Mhm.
that for some reason. Probably because I love people like way too much. So I've created help organize a big camping trip every fall, and I run events where I live, and I make them fragrance free. And the whole idea for me was like,
Build what
what
you need.
benefits me? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to become the resource that I really needed,
Right.
um, and I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and been like, I love that this doesn't allow fragrances because it gives me migraines, or like somebody else will
Mm-hmm.
have MCAS, or somebody else has something else, or they have asthma or other
Mm-hmm.
conditions. Pregnant people, like those things can affect a whole wide
Mm-hmm.
range of people. People who are on other types of chemo and
Well,
have other
there
types of
was
cancer.
a Quad AI report, I think it was Quad AI, that came out just like basically stating, I believe it was 30%, but here I go quoting studies that I don't have in front of me again.
No, it's 30.
30% of
It's
the
30% of
population has a sensitivity or allergy to fragrances, to
yes,
especially synthetic fragrances, but fragrances in general. And
and
that's
that's
a
based on
huge,
multiple international research studies.
yeah,
I've
that's a
read them all
huge
because I'm a big
percentage.
nerd about it.
Yeah, that's a huge percentage of the population.
It's
That is a lot of people who are just like going about it, just suffering or taking Advil to get rid of the headache or, whatever, in social
and
situations where they're bombarded by scent all the time.
for scale, 10% of the population is a redhead. So
Yeah, yeah,
3 times the amount of redheads in the world. Just like
yeah.
something to like people can visually see as to like what percentage of
Mm-hmm.
people it actually impacts. It's pretty high.
For
Um,
sure.
but everything else, I completely agree with Candace on the fact that like if it makes you happy, it's a good coping mechanism. As long as it's not harming you,
Right.
like um, obviously don't like exclusively eat ice cream, even if it brings you lots of joy.
I mean,
I
sure.
speak from my own experience. I might mostly exclusively eat ice cream,
I
frozen
will
yogurt
say,
specifically.
in addition to those things, taking care of your mental health, whether that's medication to help or whether that's, I mean, therapy for me has been crucial. Um, since my diagnosis. It's been like an absolute lifesaver. I love my therapist and I look forward to our conversations. And I do feel like I mean, I know it's her job, so I guess it's fine, but she gets the brunt of my emotional reactions to all of this because I do tend to not share that with other people because they don't understand and they don't want to hear it. Even if they say they do, they don't know what to do with all those feelings. Um, and so having an outlet for that where I don't have to burden my partner or my family with it all the time is hugely helpful for my mental health. And it's nice to have someone help me. I'm pretty good at reframing things for myself anyway, but it's nice to have someone help when that muscle isn't working as well, or when I'm too tired or too upset.
It's funny because I'm also in therapy, but I am somebody who I'm like a very external processor. So I tell like my close friends or my partners hear so much
Mm,
stuff that I probably shouldn't. But like it also like, while I want to do that, I also like really value being somebody that they can vent to about things.
a
Like
hundred
venting is
percent.
like how I process a lot of stuff.
Yeah, maybe I
And
should
just need to get it off
clarify.
my chest. And so I think it can look different ways for different people. Not that that's not something you
Mm.
also do. Just
It is
you
absolutely
know,
something. I'm an external processor in every possible way. So Denny hears all of it, and my family hears a lot of it. But I mean the I don't know, the like dark thoughts, the thoughts that you
yeah,
don't feel like need I feel like those become a burden to other people. Them listening to my ranting, or Denny has to hear about it all the time, like just my whatever thing I'm thinking about or that I'm frustrated about, or and I don't hide how I'm feeling from him, but I also don't give him the full weight of it all the time. Sometimes he
right.
gets it because I can't help it, but like having that external place to put it where you know it's safe and you know that and probably they're going to draw it out of you in a way that your family is not, or your friends or whatever aren't, because they're not going to dig in the way a therapist would. And for me anyway, it's been very cathartic to have that as an
Hmm.
outlet. And it's always so complicated talking about things like that because we can't help but keep saying that, like, I'm so fortunate that that's an option for me. My insurance covers it. I have lots of options in my town. So if one doesn't work out, I can move to another. It's not, or my city rather, but it's not hard for me. And I recognize
Yeah.
it can be hard for others in under-resourced places or who don't have the capacity. There are lots of nonprofits. There are lots of free support groups. There are
Peer support
there
could also be really great too.
totally there are other ways to build that in that isn't a therapist if you don't have access. I really, really strongly believe in the virtual support group if you're
Hmm.
one to want to talk to other people or even just listen to what they have to say. I've learned so much about the disease and about how to cope with it from other people living with it, and that's been huge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think on that note, I think we covered all our questions for today.
I think so. And between your getting hoarse and my throat
I
clearing,
know, I'm like totally losing my voice.
yeah, I think we covered all the things we intended to. So thank you
We
so
really
much as always.
appreciate you. We appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you. Great minds.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to MaskCast. Your hosts are not medical professionals, and nothing discussed here should be taken as medical advice. Please speak to your medical provider about any issues you're experiencing or therapies you're interested in. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at podhost@maskcastpod.com.